Congressman Emmer, happy National Ag Day. Let's begin by talking about how significant agriculture is to the state of Minnesota.
Oh, happy National Ag Week, not just day. I mean, look, I don't think a lot of Minnesotans who live in the 9 to 11 county metro out of the 87 counties in Minnesota understand that the two primary drivers of our state's private economy happen to be ag and manufacturing. Ag is a huge factor in the economic prosperity of the state of Minnesota. And quite frankly, Minnesota farmers not only feed Minnesotans, Mark, they feed the world.
Now, I'm not sure if you're in D.C. right now. I assume that you are, and I've been seeing on social media a lot of farm machinery on display at the National Mall. Have you been able to encounter any of that?
No, not yet. But hopefully we will. Just another version of what I remember. It's Machinery Hill as a kid at the Minnesota State Fair, which right now has become Farm Fest, right? Every August. That's where you get to see the best stuff in Minnesota. But hopefully we'll get a chance to see it in D.C.
As we start to dig into some pressing issues for farmers in Minnesota and across the country, certainly input costs are a concern. And I wanted to ask you about tariffs on fertilizer imports and what Congress could potentially do to help ease that inflation on farmers.
Yeah, you say inputs are becoming a challenge. I think it's a crisis. Our farmers, Mark, are facing unprecedented price hikes ahead of the growing season when it comes to fertilizer in particular. In fact, fertilizer prices right now are their highest on record. And it's not just the last 2 years that our farm families in Minnesota and across this country have had to face and overcome incredible challenges. They continue to be under enormous pressure between the high energy costs, the cost of fuel, the feed costs, and now here comes fertilizer costs. You just can't afford another curveball. And what we're trying to do, even though you haven't asked me, last week we sent a letter to the chair of the International Trade Committee, Jason Kearns, asking that he lift duties on fertilizer imports from Morocco, Trinidad, and Tobago to try to lower the costs, increase the supply of fertilizer that's available to Minnesotan and American farmers. And we are absolutely watching this issue closely, and I think you can expect further legislative action.
Have you received a response from the ITC yet?
Yes.
And are you optimistic that these duties will be addressed in the short term, or will this be a longer-term solution?
Well, it's both. I'm hoping that we get some short-term relief, but that's not going to be absolute relief. Remember, fertilizer prices last week were nearly 10% higher than the week before, according to Green Market's North America Fertilizer Price Index. That's the highest price point ever recorded. And prices are now actually 40% higher for fertilizer than they were a month ago, just prior to the invasion of Ukraine. One of the problems, as you probably know, Mark, Russia is consistently among the world's leading exporters of fertilizer. They have a trade volume of almost $9 billion on an annual basis. And the U.S. imports an estimated $10 billion or so, a little bit more worth of fertilizer for crops each year, or at least it did in the most recent year of record, 2021. And of that, a little over $1 billion, almost $1.5 billion came from Russia, which is now off the market. So with the sanctions that's bringing global trade with Russia to a standstill, it's imperative that we open up these other markets, Morocco, Trinidad, Tobago, et cetera, to try and lower costs and deal with this Russian issue. Hopefully that will be a short-term help, but we've got to look at a more long-term solution because we have no idea what's going to happen with Ukraine and Russia going forward.
And certainly there's volatility because of Russia and Ukraine, not only with fertilizer prices, but grain prices in general. And as you think about risk management tools that farmers need to have, that segues well into work on the next farm bill. What are you hearing and what's being discussed?
You know what? It's just beginning, and I shouldn't say that because little pieces of it have been discussed all along. But you're right. I think the biggest concern right now, it's not just the safety nets, the risk protection for farm farmers and farm families and people in the ag business in general, Mark. But these high fertilizer prices, the high fuel prices, all of the challenges that our farm families are having across the country, this is having a chilling effect on global food production, not just in Minnesota and across the United States, but around the globe. I'm concerned that we're going to see some in our ag production say, look, I just can't take this risk this year because the costs are too high and we don't know what the outcome's going to be. That's going to create a whole other set of problems. So I know that there is a big push, even though we're in an election year, to really start focusing in on what we're going to have to do with the next farm bill, because it's imperative that we reform it going forward. I think farmers have some great ideas. People in the ag industry have some great ideas. It's about making sure that we know where the next generation of farmer is coming from, making sure that the existing generation is able to pass ag lands off, not just to their own family members, but to people who are interested in farming, period. And then making sure that the programs that we have actually meet the needs as we see them before we run into a much bigger problem with potential food disruption, supply disruption, maybe as early as this fall. And I think that's something that's on everyone's mind right now in Washington.
Switching to biofuels, Congressman Emmer, the clock is ticking on making a way for E15 to be sold during the summer months. I know there have been bills introduced in both the Senate and now in the House that would address the year-round E15 issue. What are the prospects of that getting done in time for the summer driving season?
So it's going to be tough. I'm trying not to put my partisan hat on here, Mark. It's going to be tough because there is from a procedural standpoint, those in charge, Nancy Pelosi and company, really are not doing the job necessary to move things. That being said, the good thing, which is a bad thing for the country and for our farm families, the ag sector in general, is this runaway gas prices, fuel prices, are going to force, well, they already have forced some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who would like to kill all of this, the fuel that you and I, whether it's biofuels, whether it's regular traditional gas, coal, liquid gas, etc. Their goal was to kill it when this session started, Mark. And because of the challenges that Americans are having, not just in our ag communities, but across the entire nation, some of them have already started to change their tune. And that might be a good thing for you and me and for our ag sector when it comes to our ag-based fuels. This time for year-round E15 is so long overdue. And who knows, maybe this is just the thing. Out of a crisis can come some good, and maybe this is one of those that we can see happen in the next several months.
Congressman Emmer, anything else that you want to make sure we talk about today?
No, I just, to you and all your listeners, Mark, hang in there. Enjoy Ag Week and understand we're all celebrating all the work that you're doing, but we also recognize the challenges that you have been up against, not just right now, but over the last, 2 years plus. So we're in it together. We'll finish this thing, and better days are ahead, Mark.